You won't believe what a broken man found in a flooded church during the worst storm of the decade. Subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The rain didn't fall the night it attacked. Pounded roofs like fists, turned roads into angry rivers, and dragged fences and memories alike downstream. Noah Carter sat behind the wheel of his truck, engine off, listening to the sound of the storm swallowing the town he'd stopped pretending to belong to. He hadn't meant to sleep in a church parking lot, but when your whole world fits in the back seat, you go where the ground isn't mud. Flash. Lightning lit up the stained glass windows, revealing a silhouette that shouldn't have been there. Then it came. A cry. Soft, sharp, real. Noah's door flung open. Boots hit water, and instinct took over. Inside, the pews floated like wreckage. Hymn books, waterlogged and bleeding ink. The cry echoed again. Closer now. Noah waded deeper. Flashlight bobbing through the dark. His breath tight and shallow. Then, there, behind the altar, curled up on a soaked choir robe, was a girl. No more than 6. Eyes red, face streaked with rain and tears, shivering so hard it looked like she might disappear. Noah whispered, I got you now. She didn't speak, didn't scream, just stared at him like someone who'd run out of words a long time ago. If you were dropped into the middle of a flood with nothing but fear in your hands, you'd look the same. Noah dropped to one knee, letting the flashlight rest between them so she could see he wasn't a threat. He'd seen that look before: Afghanistan, Haiti, New Orleans. It was the look of someone who wasn't just lost. They'd been left behind. Can you walk? He asked gently, voice low. She didn't move, but her eyes flicked to the door, then back to him. It was enough. He peeled off his soaked jacket and wrapped it around her, hands steady even though his gut was anything but. The water was rising faster now. He could hear it slapping the stained tile at the back of the sanctuary. The storm outside had teeth, and they were running out of time. She clung to his neck as he lifted her, light as breath, soaked through and shaking. He kicked open the side door. It groaned like it was mourning the place, and the wind hit them hard. Sheets of rain lashed at their faces as he trudged back to the truck. Almost there, kid, he said, breath ragged. Just hold on. The truck door slammed shut with a squelch of soaked metal, and the storm kept pounding like it was trying to break in. Noah turned the key engine, roared alive on the first try. Old military rigs don't ask questions, they just move. The girl was curled in the passenger seat, teeth chattering so fast it was like her body couldn't decide if it was freezing or fighting. He cranked the heat, then reached into the glove box for the emergency blanket infoil, thin, crinkled, but warm. He wrapped it around her gently, careful not to startle her. Still no words. Just those wide, blinking eyes watching him from under the blanket like a ghost who hadn't figured out she was still here. Name? He asked. Nothing. You hurt? She blinked again, but didn't shake her head. Didn't nod either. Noah exhaled, rubbed the back of his neck. There were 3 shelters open, but with roads like rivers, and a little girl who looked like she might vanish if left alone for 5 seconds. None of them felt close enough. So he turned the wheel and headed north, toward the only place he still trusted when the world went sideways. The old ranger station, remote, dry, and untouched by time. And for now, it would have to be home. The road was barely a road anymore. Water sloshed over the hood as the tires fought for grip on a path that used to be gravel. Now it was just wet memory. Noah leaned forward, eyes scanning through the sheets of rain like they held answers. The girl hadn't moved. Still wrapped in foil, still silent. But now there was something new. Her hand, small and shaking, had found the edge of his sleeve. It stayed there. Not tight. Not desperate. Just enough to say, "I'm here." "Don't go." Noah didn't speak. Didn't need to. He just drove. Each mile a battle. Each bend in the road a question he couldn't answer. What the hell had this kid been through? Where were her people? And why the church? 30 more minutes. That's what he figured. If the bridge held, if the hill wasn't washed out, if luck hadn't finally run dry. Outside, the lightning cracked again. Briefly, the interior lit up just long enough for him to catch the edge of something scrawled on her wrist. Ink. A number. Faded but real. He blinked. Looked again. The number was still there. Who sends a kid into a flood with a phone number written on her skin? The bridge was still standing, but just barely. One more hour of rain, and it would be a story on the news. Noah didn't hesitate. He gunned the engine and barreled across, the truck rattling like a tin can in a thunder drum. The ranger station came into view like a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. A-frame, high ground, generator still intact, door always unlocked. Built by men who planned for the worst and hoped to never use it. Tonight, it was their lifeboat. Noah parked close, scooped the girl up again. Her fingers still clutched that jacket sleeve like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Inside, it was cold but dry. He set her down gently on the old cot, fired up the propane heater, and started searching the cupboards. Crackers, powdered milk, old coffee. Nothing good, but it was something. She didn't speak, but her eyes tracked him. Every move. Not scared. Just waiting. He crouched beside her again. Pointed to her wrist. "This number, do you know who it belongs to?" She hesitated. Then, slowly, almost too softly to hear, she whispered her first words since the church. "Mom." The word hit harder than the rain ever could. Mom. One syllable, trembling, but loaded like a bullet in the chest. Noah froze, eyes locking with hers. He nodded slowly. "Okay." He kept his voice soft, careful. "We'll call her." But in the back of his mind, something was already off. No 6-year-old wanders into a flooded church unless something went horribly wrong. He found the old radio phone mounted by the ranger logbooks. No signal. Not here, not yet. Cell towers were probably underwater. He tried the sat line. Static. Dead. The only thing working was the silence. He wrote the number down anyway, triple-checked it, then tucked it into his pocket. Just in case. She sat on the cot, knees tucked under her chin, eyes heavy but stubbornly open. He brought her water and crackers. She took them like a soldier. No thank you, no fuss, just quiet survival. "What's your name?" he asked after a while. She looked at him, paused, then shook her head no. Not because she didn't know, because she wasn't ready to say. Noah didn't push. He'd seen battle-hardened men need weeks to speak again. She'd talk when she could. Until then, he'd be the quiet next to her storm. She didn't sleep. Not really. Just lay there under the emergency blanket, eyes flickering open every few minutes like her body was still stuck in survival mode. Noah didn't blame her. The world she knew had been swallowed by water. Whatever came before that probably wasn't gentle either. He kept the lantern low and sat near the window, one eye on the road or what used to be one. Every few minutes he checked the sky. No stars. Just thick clouds, stubborn and heavy, refusing to move on. The radio finally cracked to life just after 3 a.m. A dispatcher's voice, faint but clear. Static-laced updates from the emergency network. 3 missing children confirmed. 2 already found. 1 still unaccounted for. No name. Just age. 6. Last seen near St. Martin's Church. He looked over at the girl. She was staring at him now, wide awake. She had heard it too. He could see it in the way her jaw tensed, just barely, like she was trying to keep something inside. Noah leaned forward. "Was that you?" he asked gently. "Were they talking about you?" She nodded once. Small. Precise. Then whispered a name so quiet it almost didn't make it across the room. Ava. Ava. It landed soft but heavy, like a door unlocking deep inside her chest. Noah didn't say anything right away. Didn't want to scare the name back into silence. He just nodded once, slow, respectful. "That's a strong name," he said quietly. "Fits you." Ava didn't respond, but she didn't look away either. That felt like progress. He stood and made a mental list: clothes, water, something warm to eat once the power came back, and a plan. Always a plan. Marines didn't move without one. But this wasn't combat. This was a little girl whose world had drowned, and a man who hadn't expected to matter again. He checked the drawer under the cot. Old ranger supplies, some child-sized emergency clothing, mismatched but clean. He held them up and raised a brow. "You okay changing into something dry?" She nodded, just barely. Then took the bundle with both hands and disappeared behind the partition curtain. Noah used the moment to breathe. Deep. Focused. This wasn't just about keeping her safe tonight. It was about what came next. Where she belonged. Who was still looking for her. If anyone was. She came out in the oversized sweatshirt and pants, sleeves bunched at her wrists, legs cuffed 3 times just to keep her from tripping. But she looked warmer. Safer. More like a kid than a ghost. Noah smiled gently. "Looks like they almost fit." She didn't answer, but this time there was a flicker at the corner of her mouth. Not a smile, but something trying to remember how. He poured her a mug of warm water-not coffee, not cocoa, just heat, and handed it over. She took it carefully, 2 hands, like it might break. Then she sat again, legs tucked up on the cot, staring at the wall. Not afraid anymore. Just watching. Noah sat across from her. Let the silence settle. He knew better than to rush a kid out of shock. You don't dig someone out of trauma. You wait by the edge until they're ready to climb. Finally, he asked, "Ava, where's your mom now?" She looked up slowly. Her eyes didn't fill with tears. They just went distant. Like she was remembering something she didn't want to understand. "She told me to hide," Ava whispered. "She said she'd come back." Then her voice cracked. "But she didn't." Noah didn't speak. Didn't rush to fill the silence with soft promises or easy answers. He just sat there, steady, so she wouldn't have to hold it alone. Ava looked down at the mug in her hands. Steam rose between them like a fragile wall. He could see the way her fingers trembled, trying hard not to let it show. "She told me to wait in the back room," Ava said, voice flat. "Behind the piano." She blinked slowly. It got dark fast. The water came in under the door. I climbed up on the bench and stayed really still. Noah swallowed hard. He could picture it. That old church flooding like a sinking ship, and a 6-year-old gripping silence like it was armor. "Did you see her leave?" he asked softly. Ava shook her head. "She said she was going to get help, that she'd come back for me." Noah leaned back slowly, exhaling through his nose. He'd heard promises like that before. Made a few himself, in places where not everyone made it out. She was still waiting, even now. Even after the flood. Even after the silence. And deep down, Noah understood what she hadn't said out loud. She didn't believe her mother was coming back anymore. By morning, the rain had slowed to a whisper, but the world outside was still underwater. Trees bent like they'd lost the will to stand. Roads didn't exist anymore, just rivers where pavement used to be. Noah stepped out onto the porch of the ranger station, boots sinking slightly into soaked earth. He scanned the horizon, fingers instinctively checking the sidearm he hadn't needed in years. Old habits die harder than some people. He saw no signs of helicopters. No rescue crews. No movement at all. Just the sound of dripping branches and the low groan of the land trying to breathe again. Inside, Ava sat wrapped in 2 blankets, staring at the same empty radio Noah had been checking every hour. He'd taught recon units how to survive in worse conditions, but this was different. This wasn't about escape. It was about rebuilding something small enough to carry her through the next few hours. He lit a fire in the old iron stove. Dry wood cracked and hissed, and Ava finally shifted closer, drawn to the warmth. He handed her an energy bar, still sealed, and nodded toward the fire. "This place'll hold," he said. "Long enough for the world to remember us." She didn't smile. But she nodded. And somehow, that was enough. The fire popped once, loud and sudden, and Ava flinched hard enough to spill her water. Noah was at her side, instantly not panicked, just present. "It's just wood, not war," he said gently. But she wouldn't meet his eyes. Her fingers gripped the edge of the blanket like she was bracing for something worse. He knelt next to her, rested a steady hand on the floor instead of her shoulder. No pressure, just quiet company. "You ever hear fireworks too close?" he asked. "Makes your chest jump out of rhythm. That's all it was." Ava didn't answer. But after a moment, her grip on the blanket eased. Noah sat back, watching the flames twist inside the stove. They reminded him of something he'd buried: campfires in desert nights, laughter that didn't last, faces he tried not to name. He hadn't been anyone's hero in a long time. And now here he was, trying to keep one scared kid from unraveling. He stood, stretched his legs, then looked over at her. "Want to help me do something boring?" he asked. "We've got gear to check, supplies to count, real exciting stuff." Ava hesitated, then gave a tiny shrug. It was the closest thing to okay she'd said all day. They started with the emergency packs. 2 duffels shoved under the cot, zipped tight since before Ava was even born. Incineration bars, iodine tablets, maps older than Noah's scars. He showed her how to check expiration dates, how to count without rushing, how to fold things back the right way. She followed his lead without a word. Focused. Precise. It was a rhythm he recognized. The kind soldiers use when everything else is chaos. They worked in silence, but not the kind that hurts. This was the kind that mends things. The kind that lets two strangers become something more than alone. When they opened the second bag, it hit him the smell of smoke. Not from the fire. Older. Embedded in the canvas like memory. His hand paused over a half-melted flashlight. Ava noticed. "Is that yours?" she asked. Her voice was small, but steady. He nodded once. "It came back from somewhere I didn't." She didn't ask what that meant. Didn't have to. She just reached out and touched the edge of the strap. A gesture that said, "I get it. Even if I don't yet." And for the first time since the flood, Noah didn't feel like a ghost in his own skin. They found a half-burned photo in the bottom of the pack. Edges singed. Water streaked. But the image still held. 3 faces. One of them his. Ava leaned in, studying it like it was a clue. "Is that your family?" she asked. Noah didn't answer right away. He took the photo gently, thumb running along the edge where the flame had kissed it years ago. "My wife," he said finally. "And our son." Ava's voice went quieter. "Where are they now?" Noah stared at the picture a little longer, then folded it and tucked it back into the pocket of the duffel. "Gone," he said. "Not from the flood, just gone." Ava didn't speak. Didn't press. She just nodded once, like she knew what that kind of quiet meant. And maybe she did. Because you don't sit in a church during a storm if your life's been full of soft landings. Outside, the wind picked up again, shaking the old windows in their frames. The fire crackled like it had something to say but didn't know how to say it. Inside, they sat side by side on the floor, saying nothing. Because sometimes you only need one name to feel everything all over again. The night crept in like fog slow, thick, heavy. Noah sealed the station windows just in case the wind picked up again. Not because he was scared, but because Ava didn't need any more surprises. She sat curled on the cot, watching the shadows on the walls like they might move if she blinked too slow. No cartoons. No lullabies. Just the low hum of wind and the occasional snap of firewood. Noah pulled a second blanket over her. "You want me to stay close?" he asked. She nodded. "Didn't say thank you." "Didn't need to." He grabbed the old folding chair, set it just beside her cot, and leaned back with a sigh that had a decade of weight in it. Outside, thunder rolled far off in the distance. A reminder that the storm wasn't done with the world just yet. Ava finally whispered, "What was your son's name?" Noah didn't open his eyes, just spoke softly into the dark. "James." There was a pause. Then her voice came again. "He had your eyes." He turned slightly. But Ava was already asleep. Blanket up to her chin, breathing slow and even. Noah stayed awake. Somebody had to. At sunrise, the ranger station glowed gold. Light spilled through the wooden slats like the storm had never happened. But Noah knew better. Disaster didn't always leave rubble it left questions. He stepped outside, boots squelching in the damp grass. The air smelled like wet pine and broken plans. Down below, the valley was still half submerged. Houses like islands. Silence where there should have been sirens. Noah scanned the horizon. Still no helicopters. Still no rescue teams. Still nothing. He headed back inside and found Ava awake, sitting cross-legged on the cot with her blanket like armor. She didn't speak, just watched him like she'd been waiting for a decision he hadn't made yet. "We're gonna try the ridge," he said, grabbing the emergency radio. "Signals stronger up top, might catch a search frequency." Ava didn't ask questions. didn't protest. She just climbed off the cot, slipped into her damp sneakers, and looked up at him like where you go, I go. Noah packed quick. 2 bottles of water, a flare, first aid, the note with the number on her wrist. Then he opened the door, held out his hand, and felt hers slip into his without hesitation. She didn't ask where they were going, just walked beside him like she'd already survived worse. The trail up the ridge was slick with mud, roots like veins twisting across the path. Every step required balance, patience, and trust. Ava had all 3. She didn't whine, didn't ask how far, just kept walking, one hand in Noah's, the other gripping the oversized sleeve of her borrowed sweatshirt. Halfway up, she stumbled on a loose stone. Noah caught her before she hit the ground. Her breath caught, sharp and fast. Then she nodded and kept going. Tough kid. The wind picked up near the top, carried a cold bite and the scent of pine and wet ash. From the ridge, the town looked like it had drowned in slow motion. Noah pulled out the radio, tried 4 different frequencies. Nothing. Then static. A blip. A voice. Search Team Charlie reporting. Still no contact with missing juvenile area. Remains inaccessible by vehicle. Ava's eyes locked on him. Noah pressed the button. This is Noah Carter. I have the girl. Silence. Then confirmation crackled through like lightning finally striking ground. Repeat that, sir. Did you say you have the child? Noah looked at Ava. Her hand squeezed his. Yeah, he said. She's with me. The radio crackled again. Can you confirm the child's condition, name, status? Noah glanced at Ava. She was standing still, wind tugging at her hair, face calm but unreadable. He raised the mic. Name's Ava, 6 years old. Cold, tired, but safe. Copy that. Extraction en route, the voice replied. ETA 60 minutes. Stay in place. Noah clipped the radio to his belt and lowered himself onto a flat rock. Ava sat beside him, knees pulled close. She looked out over the valley like she was waiting for it to wake up. Do you think they'll find my mom too? She asked. Noah didn't answer right away. He knew how to shoot straight, but not with children. Not when the truth carried weight heavier than bullets. We'll find out, he said finally. Sometimes people get stuck, lost. Doesn't mean they're gone. She nodded, like she wanted to believe him. Like hope was something she could hold for 1 more hour. The clouds above shifted. A sliver of sun cracked through. And for the first time in 2 days, the ridge wasn't just a place to wait. It was a signal. A promise. Someone was coming. The sound came first. Low and distant, like a giant stirring behind the clouds. Then it grew louder, closer, unmistakable. Rotor blades. Ava stood slowly, eyes scanning the sky like she wasn't sure if she believed it yet. Noah had seen that look before Hope, fighting with doubt, neck and neck. Then the helicopter came into view. Bright yellow, cutting across the gray like a promise finally delivered. It circled once, then hovered above the clearing. Noah popped the flare. Orange smoke billowed into the air, wild and urgent. The bird shifted position, dropping lower. A door opened. Ropes deployed. 2 rescue workers descended, gear clanking, voices sharp but calm. They moved with precision, practiced and clean. One reached for Ava. You must be Ava, sweetheart. We've got you. She looked back at Noah before taking the woman's hand. Her grip tightened on his for 1 second longer. Then she let go. As they strapped her into the harness, she called out over the roar, "You're coming too, right?" Noah nodded. "Right behind you." She gave a small thumbs up, the first sign of a real smile. And then she rose, lifted into the sky, away from the flood that tried to take everything. Noah didn't watch the helicopter disappear. He trusted the sky to carry her now. She was out of danger. That was the only thing that mattered. When the second harness dropped, he hooked in without hesitation. The winch hummed, and the ground fell away beneath him. He didn't look back. By the time his boots hit the floor of the chopper, Ava was already wrapped in a thermal blanket, cheeks red from wind but eyes still tracking him. She didn't speak, just shifted an inch closer the second he sat beside her. The medic checked her vitals, asked questions Noah couldn't answer. No known allergies. No medical history. Just a name and a flood and a little girl trying not to fall apart. "Where's your mom now, Ava?" the medic asked gently. She didn't answer. Didn't even blink. Noah leaned in. "She was last seen near St. Martin's Church," he said. "Before the water took it." The medic nodded, quiet understanding behind tired eyes. He scribbled something on a chart. "Where are we taking her?" Noah asked. "Field shelter at Ridgepoint Elementary. They're processing survivors." Noah looked at Ava. She looked at him. And just like that, shelter wasn't about buildings anymore. It was about presence. Ridgepoint Elementary didn't look like a school anymore. It looked like triage. Rows of cots. Stacked water bottles. People moving like ghosts between stations. The helicopter set down in the backfield. Noah carried Ava off, her arms looped around his neck even though her feet could walk now. Maybe she didn't want to let go. Maybe he didn't either. Volunteers rushed in. Clipboards, questions, blankets. But Noah kept her close. Every time someone tried to separate them, Ava tensed. He noticed. They backed off. A woman in a yellow vest with tired eyes and a gentle voice approached. "We're collecting names," she said. "Family members, last known contacts." Noah pulled the worn paper from his jacket. The number from Ava's wrist. She looked at it, then back at him. "Do you think someone will answer?" Noah crouched to meet her eyes. "We're gonna try. That's what matters." The woman dialed. Let it ring. 3 times. 4. Voicemail. Ava's jaw tightened. She didn't cry. She just withdrew. The woman said softly, "We'll try again later." Noah looked down at Ava. She wasn't just missing someone. She was bracing for no one to come. They gave Ava her own cot. Corner of the gym. Clean blanket. New socks in a paper bag labeled with her name in black marker. All the right things. But it didn't look like comfort to her. It looked like waiting. Noah sat on the cot next to hers, boots still wet, jacket draped over his lap like he didn't know what to do with his hands anymore. She broke the silence first. "If my mom doesn't come back, what happens to me?" Noah didn't answer right away. Not because he didn't know, but because he hated the answers. Foster intake. Paper trails. Case files and government forms that tried to define a child with numbers and boxes. "You won't be alone," he said finally. It was all he could promise. Ava nodded slowly, then asked something he didn't expect. "Did you have a dog?" He blinked, then chuckled once. "Yeah. Big clumsy mutt. Always stole my boots." Her mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Mine used to eat crayons. Was it blue every time he barked? She giggled. It was small. Brief. But it cracked the weight around them just enough to let breath in again. The gym buzzed with low voices, shuffling feet, the hum of borrowed generators and borrowed time. People moved in and out like Shadow's families reunited. Names called over loudspeakers, clipboards passed like lifelines. But for Noah, it all blurred into background noise. His focus stayed on Ava. She sat quietly, flipping through a crumpled coloring book someone had given her. No crayons left. Just her finger tracing the outlines. He watched her pause on one page. A dog. Tongue out, eyes crooked, tail mid-wag. She used to draw him everywhere, she said softly. Even on the walls. Mom didn't even get mad. Noah nodded. Sometimes walls are better with stories on them. She looked up at him. You think I'll forget his face? Noah leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You only forget what you stop talking about. Then he smiled. Tell me his name. Chomp. He raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Shoes, furniture, maybe a couch or two? Ava laughed. This time it lasted longer. Full, real, echoing off the gym walls like a bell breaking silence. And just like that, they weren't two broken people waiting in a shelter. They were two souls keeping a dog's name alive. A volunteer walked by with a clipboard, her voice low but clipped. Any child separated from family needs to be processed. No exceptions. Noah didn't react, but Ava's grip on his sleeve tightened just enough for him to feel it. He looked down. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. He leaned closer. You hungry? She nodded, almost invisible. They walked past folding tables with canned soup and white bread, past volunteers offering warm smiles and cold sandwiches. Noah grabbed 2 trays and sat with her at the far end near the exit doors, where the light from outside still felt like sky. Ava picked at her food. Not because it tasted bad, because it felt too normal. Like pretending everything was okay might make the truth harder to remember. Then she reached into the pocket of her borrowed hoodie and pulled something out. A drawing. Wrinkled and water-stained. A stick figure with a dog, a house, a smiling sun. And next to the figure another shape, added later, darker lines. That one's you, she said. Noah blinked. The lines weren't perfect. But the message was, she had made room for him. In her drawing, in her story. Noah kept the drawing, folded it gently, tucked it into the chest pocket of his jacket like it was something fragile and sacred. Ava didn't ask if he liked it. She just watched him do it. And when he looked back at her, she nodded once like that settled something deep inside her. Across the gym, another family was called up. A reunion. Tears. A mother screaming her daughter's name. A father collapsing to his knees with relief. Ava watched all of it without blinking. Every second like a spotlight she didn't want on her. Then came the wall. Near the entrance, a long whiteboard covered in names. First names. Last names. Ages. Handwritten messages next to them, looking for last seen, please call. Noah stood in front of it, scanning the board like it might talk back. He found the right corner. Black marker. One clean line. AVA safe. Found near St. Martin's. Contact shelter staff. Ava stood beside him, staring at her name like it was strange to see it out in the open. You're real now, Noah said quietly. To everyone. She looked up at him. I was real before. And he nodded. You were, but now they have to see it too. Noah didn't sleep that night. Too much noise. Not the kind from people or cots creaking. The kind that lived behind his ribs. The kind that whispered, "What now?" Ava slept beside him, curled tight, her drawing clutched in one hand like a lifeline. Every now and then, her lips moved in sleep. Names, maybe. Memories. At dawn, he walked the gym alone. Past families reunited. Saw relief like fireworks and grief like ash. Every wall told a story. He paused near the church list. A volunteer had added it overnight. St. Martin's Church Unconfirmed Casualties. One column stood out. Unidentified woman. Found near choir entrance. Noah's stomach dropped. He read it twice. Then again. He didn't know for sure, but his gut already did. When Ava woke, he crouched next to her and spoke gently. "There's a name they haven't placed yet." She looked up, eyes sharp. "Older than 6. "Can you tell me where you were hiding?" he asked. "Inside the church. Exactly where?" She nodded slowly, then whispered, "Behind pew 9, near the choir wall." Noah closed his eyes. It matched. And just like that, the mystery was no longer faceless. The shelter staff moved fast once Noah told them. Ava's description matched the location, the timeline, the clothes. But it wasn't enough. They needed confirmation. A call went out to headquarters. Photos taken at intake. Cross-referenced with names, DNA if needed. But those things took time. And time doesn't move gently when a child's watching every clock tick. Ava didn't ask questions. She just listened. To the silence between footsteps. To the words no one wanted to say out loud. Noah stayed close. Didn't leave her side except once, to step outside and breathe air that didn't smell like bleach and fear. He paced behind the school, hands clenched, heart caught between what he knew and what he hoped wasn't true. Then a woman approached, clipboard pressed to her chest. Eyes soft but certain. "We have a likely match," she said quietly. "We need someone to confirm." Noah blinked. "You want me to? We can't ask a child to do it." He nodded. Of course they couldn't. But somehow, it still felt like asking him to break something that had just started to heal. He exhaled. "Let's go." The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. Fluorescent lights buzzed above, casting everything in a pale wash that made even the walls look tired. Noah walked behind the staff member, each step heavier than the last. They stopped outside a door with no label. Just a number 314. Noah stared at it for a beat, then pushed it open. The room smelled like damp clothes and hospital soap. On the table, a few belongings in a plastic bag. Shoes. A torn jacket. And a photo. Ava. And a woman beside her. Smiling. Alive. Noah didn't need more. His jaw tightened. He nodded once. "That's her mom," he said. The words came out quieter than he expected. The staff replaced a hand gently on his shoulder. "Thank you. We'll handle everything with care." He turned to leave, but paused. Looked back at the photo. "Tell me she didn't suffer." "We believe it was fast," she said. She was trying to get back inside. She didn't make it to the exit. Noah nodded again, then walked out. Each step carrying the weight of a truth he didn't know how to give a child. Ava was sitting on her cot when he returned. Same blanket, same corner, but her eyes had changed, like they already knew the truth before he opened his mouth. She didn't speak, just looked at him, waiting. Noah crouched beside her, slow and steady. He didn't use soft words, didn't try to wrap pain in pretty ribbons. She deserved the truth. They found someone near the choir wall, he said. She matched your mom's description. Same clothes, same place you said she was going. Ava didn't cry. She just nodded. Once. Like she'd already cried it out in the silence of that church, waiting for footsteps that never came. Noah's throat burned. He wanted to say something and think to hold her together. She didn't leave you, he whispered. She was trying to come back. That's when Ava moved. Just leaned forward and pressed her forehead into his chest. No tears. Just presence. And Noah wrapped his arms around her like she was the last mission he'd ever be given. Because maybe she was. And maybe that was enough. The shelter felt different after that. Same cots. Same echoes off the gym walls. But something had shifted. Loss doesn't make noise. It just settles. Ava stayed close. She didn't speak much. But she didn't hide either. And that mattered. Staff offered counseling. Forms. Checklists, and words like trauma support and temporary placement. Noah filled out what he could. The rest he left blank. Some questions weren't meant to be answered by strangers. Late afternoon, a man in uniform approached. Badge on his chest. Clipboard in hand. You're the one who found her? Noah nodded. Name's Carter. Noah Carter. The man made a note. We're working through next of kin. There's no one listed, no father, no extended family. Noah's stomach tightened. He'd known it already, deep down. But hearing it aloud made it final. The officer looked at him. Until we find someone or place her officially, she'll need a temporary guardian. Noah glanced at Ava, sitting quietly, tracing the edge of her shoelace with the tip of her finger. He didn't hesitate. I'm not going anywhere, he said. The paperwork came fast. Printed sheets. Signature lines. Boxes to check that could never capture what actually mattered. Temporary guardian. Emergency placement. Noah read each phrase like it might bite. But he signed anyway. Ava didn't ask what it all meant. But when the pen left the last form, she stood a little closer. Didn't touch him. Just let the space between them shrink. The staff gave her a new ID bracelet. Printed fresh. Name, birth date, guardian contact. They asked her if she wanted to list anyone else. Ava just pointed at Noah. He found me. That counts, right? The caseworker smiled. It counts. Later, Noah sat with a cold cup of coffee, staring at the corner of the gym like it might dissolve. He hadn't planned for any of this. He was a man with no address, no job, no plan beyond waking up tomorrow and figuring it out. But now, Ava. And that meant waking up couldn't just be about him anymore. She tugged his sleeve. Do we go somewhere now? He looked at her. Then the shelter. Then the door. Yeah, he said. We start somewhere new. They gave him a voucher. 2 nights in a motel on the edge of town. Hot water. Clean sheets. A door that locked. After the gym and the church and the storm, it felt like a palace. Ava took her shoes off as soon as they walked in. Dropped onto the bed without a word and just stared at the ceiling. Noah set the bag down some clothes, donated toothpaste, a stuffed bear with one eye sewn shut. She hadn't said much since the ID bracelet. Not sadness. Not fear. Just something quieter. Like she was waiting to see if the calm would last. "You ever been in a motel?" he asked. Ava shook her head. "Well, first rule, don't trust the vending machine. It eats quarters for fun." Her lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. He turned on the heater, let the warm air hum into the quiet. Then he found the nightstand notepad and wrote something down. Big, clear letters. "You're safe. You're not alone. You matter." He left it on her pillow. Said nothing. But when he checked later, it was tucked inside her backpack. The next morning, Noah sat on the edge of the motel bed, lacing up his boots, when something slid out from under the nightstand. A folded piece of paper. He picked it up, curious. It wasn't motel stationery. It was older. Worn edges. Smelled faintly of smoke and time. He unfolded it slowly. His name was written on the front in sharp handwriting. Block letters. Military neat. Noah Carter. He read it once. Then again. It was from his old commanding officer. Years old. He must have slipped it into that bag long ago and forgotten. Inside, one line stopped him cold. "You won't ever stop carrying it, Noah, but someday you'll carry it for someone else." He folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Same one that held Ava's drawing. 2 weights. Both grounding him in a way he hadn't felt since combat. Ava came out of the bathroom, rubbing her eyes. She looked at him, then at the small table where a box of cereal and 2 plastic spoons waited. "What's today?" she asked. Noah smiled. "Today, we figure out what tomorrow looks like." They sat by the motel window, sunlight cutting through the curtains like a warm reminder that the world was still turning. Noah poured dry cereal into 2 paper bowls and slid one toward Ava. She ate slowly, chewing like her thoughts were louder than her appetite. Finally, she said, "Do I have to go to a new place now?" Noah paused, then shook his head. "Not unless you want to. Right now, we're just figuring things out." Ava nodded, not quite satisfied, but not scared either. Just cautious. He understood. Trust doesn't grow overnight. Especially not for kids who've seen more endings than beginnings. Later, they walked to the recovery center. Noah needed to check in, update Ava's status, ask what came next. Inside, a caseworker greeted them with a warm smile. "We've officially listed her as unclaimed. No relatives, no guardians on record. That makes you her emergency contact of record, unless something changes." Noah looked at Ava. She was drawing again. Same dog. Same son. But this time, the second figure beside her had a name tag scribbled in. Noah. He turned back to the caseworker. "What if it doesn't change?" The woman smiled gently. "Then she's already home." After the meeting, Noah didn't say much. Didn't have to. The weight of the words unclaimed and emergency contact still hung between them like a door that hadn't fully closed. They walked past the shelter board one last time. More names had been erased. Some replaced with the word found. Others with nothing at all. Ava stopped suddenly. Her eyes locked on a small cross drawn next to one name in red marker. Noah followed her gaze. It was her mother's. Neither of them said anything, but Ava reached into her backpack, pulled out a crayon, brown worn to the paper. She stepped forward, climbed onto the bench below the wall, and wrote just beneath the name. She tried. She loved me. Noah swallowed hard, turned his face just slightly so she wouldn't see the way it broke him. Then she hopped down, took his hand without a word, and together they walked out. Not away from the grief, but with it, side by side, like something stronger than blood was beginning to form between them. The motel room felt smaller that night, not because of space, because of everything they were carrying now. Grief, quiet, and the strange shape of beginning again. Ava sat on the floor cross-legged, a pad of paper balanced on her knees. She was drawing again. But this time, she wasn't alone in the picture. There were two stick figures. One small, one tall. And between Thema House, she held it up silently. Noah looked at it, then at her. Is that us? Ava nodded. Do we get to live in that house someday? He didn't lie. Didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He just said, we'll build something. Might not look like that, but it'll be ours. She folded the paper neatly, placed it beside her backpack, and crawled under the blanket. Noah turned off the light, then lay back on the second bed, staring at the ceiling. Same questions circled over and over. What now? But then Ava's voice came, small and sure. You don't have to leave, right? Noah turned his head. No, I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time since the storm, she slept without holding her backpack. The sun rose slower than usual. Or maybe it just felt that way. Noah sat on the curb outside the motel, sipping motel coffee that tasted like burnt paper and waiting for his thoughts to line up. Behind him, Ava was still asleep, tangled in blankets, face calm, no nightmares, no sudden wakes, just peace. And after everything, they both needed that. A car passed slowly. A woman walking her dog offered a tired wave. And, for a second, life looked like something almost ordinary. He pulled out the paper from his jacket pocket, the one with Ava's drawing. The stick house. The two figures. She hadn't drawn a storm this time. Just blue sky. Maybe that's what healing looked like. Not fixing everything. Just adding blue sky where rain used to live. When he came back inside, Ava was sitting up, blinking slowly. Is it morning? Just barely, Noah said. But yeah, it's here. She stretched, then asked, Do we get pancakes? He laughed. The sound surprised them both. Absolutely. She grinned. Big and unguarded. And for the first time, it felt like they weren't surviving anymore. They were beginning. The diner was 2 blocks from the motel. Faded sign. Sticky floors. Smelled like bacon and old coffee and comfort. Ava slid into the booth like she'd done it 100 times before. The waitress smiled without asking questions. She dropped 2 menus, filled 2 water glasses, and said, Pancakes coming up. Ava blinked. How'd she know? Noah smirked. Because that's what everyone wants when the world's trying to right itself. They ate slowly. No rush. Every bite felt like reclaiming something. Warmth. Routine. Normal. Halfway through, Ava put her fork down. What happens after this? Noah sipped his coffee. We figure it out, together. She nodded, then quietly pulled a form from her backpack. Folded, wrinkled, already signed by the shelter staff. At the bottom, 1 empty line waited for his signature. Temporary guardian signature, required. He took the pen from her hand, wrote his name slowly, deliberately. When he handed it back, Ava didn't say anything. She just leaned over and rested her head against his arm. No words, just trust. Like maybe she finally believed he was staying. The storm had passed, but the world it left behind was still in pieces. Noah and Ava walked past shuttered windows, boarded-up shops, and front yards swallowed by mud. FEMA tents lined the school field now. Kids played quietly under a tarp, kicking a deflated soccer ball. Laughter came in bursts. Tired, but real. Ava clutched her drawing pad. Noah carried the paperwork. They were headed back to the center for a final check-in. Ava's file had a name now. And it was his. Inside, the caseworker greeted them like old friends. "We've got everything we need for now," she said. "You've done more than most would." Noah shook his head. "I didn't do anything special. I just didn't leave." The woman smiled, soft and knowing. "You'd be surprised how rare that is." As they turned to leave, Ava tugged on his sleeve. "Can we go back to the church?" Noah paused. "It's probably not safe yet." She nodded. "I don't need to go inside. I just want to see it." He looked down at her. Not a request out of pain, but closure. "Okay," he said quietly. "We'll go tomorrow." The next morning, the church stood like a memory that hadn't finished fading. Walls water-stained. Roof caved halfway in. Cross still intact, bent but unbroken. Noah parked at the edge of the lot. Ava climbed out slowly, drawing pad clutched to her chest. She didn't ask to go closer. She just looked. "This is where she told me to wait," she whispered, right before she ran back for someone else. Noah nodded. His voice stayed soft. "That someone else was you." Ava blinked fast, then walked to the tree stump near the front steps and sat down. She opened her sketchbook, began to draw. He didn't interrupt, didn't peek, just stood behind her like a guard watching over something sacred. After a while, she handed it to him. A simple sketch. The church. A child in the doorway. And a woman running toward her. No rain. No flood. Just light. She didn't make it, Ava said. But she tried. Noah looked at the drawing. Then, at the real church. "She did more than try," he said. "She gave you the chance to be here." They didn't stay long. Just enough for Ava to finish the drawing. Just enough for goodbye to feel real. Back at the motel, she was quiet again. Not sad. Just tired in a different way. Like someone who'd walked through something heavy and come out changed. Noah gave her space. Let her draw. Let her rest. He made a call to the shelter coordinator, asked what came next if Ava stayed with him. There were rules. Background checks. Clearances. They would fast-track it because of the circumstances. But still, nothing official yet. "She'll need to stay under emergency placement until the court makes it final," the coordinator said. "Do you want that?" Noah looked at Ava across the room. She had fallen asleep in the chair, arms wrapped around that old one-eyed bear. And for the first time, she didn't look like a lost kid. She looked like she had roots. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I want that." The coordinator paused, then said, "She's lucky." Noah smiled, barely. "Nah, I am." They didn't plan the interview. It just happened. A volunteer had mentioned the story to a local reporter. Man rescues child from flooded church. Veteran turned guardian. It spread like warmth through a cold town. The reporter showed up at the motel with a camera crew and a voice full of reverence. Noah wanted to say no, but Ava said, "Maybe if people see us, they'll remember her." So he agreed. They sat on the motel steps. Ava's hair braided by a volunteer that morning. Noah in his only clean shirt. "Can you walk us through what happened?" the reporter asked. Noah glanced at Ava. She nodded once. He told the story. Not for the cameras, but for her. The storm, the church, the cry in the dark. The girl with no name who trusted him before she knew who he was. "And what made you stay?" the reporter asked. Noah looked at Ava. She looked back, not blinking. "Because someone had to." He smiled. "And I think I was supposed to." The interview aired that night. Local news first, then regional. By morning, it was everywhere. Veteran rescues orphan in flooded church. The headline moved faster than the water ever did. Noah didn't care about the attention, but Ava did. Not for fame, for something deeper. She watched the clip on a volunteer's phone, silent, until her mother's name appeared on the screen. Identified. Mother lost during rescue attempt. "She's part of the story now," Ava said quietly. "People will know what she did." Noah nodded. "She didn't just try, she changed everything." Calls started coming in. Donations. Letters. Families offering help. Some even asked to adopt Ava, but she shook her head each time. "I already have someone." Noah was in the next room the first time she said it. He didn't react at first. But later, when the lights were off and the noise had faded, he let the weight of it land. Not a rescue. Not a mission. Family. And maybe, just maybe, the miracle wasn't that he saved her. It was that she saved him right back. They called it a miracle. Every headline, every interview, every voice that couldn't explain what happened but felt the need to name it something bigger than luck. Man with nothing rescues child with no one. Flood survivor finds unexpected family. Hope found in a storm. Noah read the stories in passing. Ava clipped the nicest ones and taped them into a notebook someone gave her. She added drawings between the pages. Little moments that no camera caught. The bear on the motel bed. The tree stump by the church. The first pancake. But Noah didn't care about headlines. He cared about mornings where Ava didn't wake up afraid. About nights where she fell asleep without gripping her backpack like a lifeline. The real miracle wasn't the rescue. It was what came after. One night, after lights out, Ava whispered across the dark, "Do you think my mom would have liked you?" Noah stared at the ceiling, then said, "I think she already does." Ava didn't answer. But the silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was full. And sometimes, that's what healing sounds like. The court hearing was set for Friday. Noah shaved for the first time in weeks. Borrowed a button-down from a volunteer. It didn't fit right, but Ava gave him a thumbs up anyway. They sat together on the bench outside the courthouse. Sunlight warmed the steps. People passed with coffee and files and urgency. But Noah stayed still. "I've never been in a courtroom," Ava said. "Me neither," he replied. "But I've stood in front of people who needed convincing. It's not that different." "Will they ask me stuff?" "Maybe," Noah said. "But you just tell the truth. That's more than enough." Inside, The judge was kind, professional, direct. Noah answered every question honestly. No dramatics. Just fact. A flood. A girl. A choice he didn't think twice about. Ava was asked one question. Do you feel safe with Mr. Carter? She didn't hesitate. I don't just feel safe, she said. I feel found. The courtroom went still. Even the clerk looked up. And when the gavel finally hit wood, it didn't sound like an ending. It sounded like the beginning of something permanent. They left the courthouse with no fanfare. No balloons. No photographers. Just a folded document and a little girl gripping Noah's hand like she'd never let go again. Officially, it was called guardianship. But Ava didn't call it that. She called it what it felt like. Family. On the walk back to the motel, she asked, Can I call you Dad now, or is there a rule about that too? Noah stopped walking, turned toward her. His voice cracked without warning. There's no rule. You can call me that whenever you're ready. She nodded like it wasn't a big deal. But the silence that followed told him it was. Everything had changed. And nothing had. They passed the corner store, where the cashier waved and pointed to a small chalkboard in the window. Welcome home, Ava. Noah swallowed hard. Ava smiled wide. And for a moment, neither of them spoke. Because for once, life was louder than loss. Later that night, as Noah tucked her in, Ava whispered, Good night, Dad. He froze. Smiled without turning. Good night, kiddo. And just like that, a word became a home. Sundays used to feel empty. Too quiet. Like the world was pausing without him. Now, they started with pancakes. Too many dishes. Too much syrup. Too much laughter for a place that used to echo. Noah rented a small apartment 2 blocks from the school. Nothing fancy. But it had a porch and a working heater, and one room with walls covered in Ava's drawings. She'd started labeling them. One was titled, The Day the Rain Gave Me a Dad. That one stayed above the kitchen sink. On Sunday afternoons, they walked the trail behind the school. Noah taught her how to skip rocks. She taught him how to use emojis properly. It felt like trade. It felt like healing. They passed the bakery where the woman in the yellow vest now greeted them by name. Every time Ava said Dad in public, Noah felt it ripple through him like music no one else could hear. They didn't talk about the storm much anymore, but it lived in both of them. Not as pain. Not anymore. But as the moment everything began. Not brokenness, but rebirth. They built the bench together on a Saturday. Just 2 pieces of wood, sanded down and sealed. One for sitting, one for remembering. It sat beneath the old tree, outside what was left of St. Martin's Church. The area had reopened, marked off as historic. People brought flowers. Some came to pray. Some came to heal. Ava brought crayons. Noah brought silence. Together, they brought presence. On the back of the bench, carved into the wood with quiet care, were 5 words Ava had chosen herself. She tried. She came back. They didn't say her mother's name out loud. They didn't have to. It lived in that spot. In that bench. In Ava's steady hands as she colored another sun into her notebook. People stopped and read it. Some left tokens. Some just sat in silence for a while. Noah watched all of it. Felt it settle inside him like something finally finished. Not the grief. That never finishes. But the wondering. The part that used to whisper what now? Now he knew. Now he lived. Rain came again 6 months later. Not a flood. Just rain. Soft, steady, unthreatening. Ava stood by the window, arms crossed, eyes tracking each drop like it was a test. Noah came up beside her, a cup of tea in one hand, a blanket draped over the other. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "It's not the same rain." He waited, then asked, "How can you tell?" She glanced up at him. "Because I'm not scared." He didn't say anything, just wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and stood there a while longer, listening to the quiet that used to mean danger and now just meant weather. Sometimes trauma echoes. Sometimes it just whispers. But healing speaks too, in the small things, in how a child breathes when the sky opens. Later that night, Ava opened her sketchbook again. This time she drew rain. But not the church, not the storm. She drew a house. Their house. Lights on. Curtains open. And two stick figures inside watching the rain fall together. They told the story every so often. Sometimes when the power blinked during storms. Sometimes when Ava couldn't sleep and needed something familiar. It always started the same way, with a flood, and a man who thought he had nothing left, and a cry in the dark that changed everything. Ava told it better than he did. She added color, details Noah forgot or never noticed. The way the church doors moaned when they opened. The way his voice sounded when he said, "I got you." Over time, it became more than just survival. It became a miracle people didn't forget. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was human. One ordinary man. One lost girl. And a world that paused just long enough for something extraordinary to grow in the wreckage. Years later, the bench still stood. The sketchbook still lived on a shelf. And every now and then, someone new would ask Ava where the story came from. She'd smile, point to Noah, and say, "It started the day he walked into the flood and found me." But what happened next? That was the part the world would never forget.